The woman at his door was freezing to death, and Wyatt Mason knew he should just let her stay the night and send her on her way. That's what you did with strangers during blizzards in South Dakota. Give them shelter, then watch them disappear with the morning light. But when Nora wrapped her frost-bitten hands around that coffee mug and looked at him with eyes that had stopped believing in safe places, something shifted. He told himself it was just compassion. Just one night of hospitality in a house too big for one broken man. He didn't know that some people don't leave because they can't find the door. They stay because they finally found home. The wind howled across the South Dakota plains like a wounded animal, carrying snow that stung like needles against exposed skin. Wyatt Mason stood at his kitchen window, watching the blizzard consume his ranch in sheets of white. At 53, he'd weathered countless storms in these Black Hills, but tonight felt different, heavier somehow, like the cold was seeping into his bones and settling there permanently. 3 years since Sarah died. 3 years of silence, broken only by cattle lowing and wind screaming through empty rooms. The ranch still operated, barely, but the life had drained out of it, along with his wife's last breath. Now it was just routine: feed the animals, mend the fences, eat alone, sleep alone. Wake up and do it all again. The knock came so softly, he almost missed it beneath the storm's fury. Wyatt froze, whiskey glass halfway to his lips. Nobody came out here, especially not in weather like this. The nearest neighbor was 8 miles down a road that was probably impassable by now. He set down the glass and moved toward the door, hand instinctively checking the rifle mounted above the frame. When he opened the door, a woman stood on his porch, hunched against the wind. Her long black hair whipped around her face, and her dark eyes held something Wyatt recognized instantly, the hollow look of someone running from ghosts. "Please," she said, her voice barely audible over the storm. "I need somewhere to stay. Just tonight. I'll be gone by morning." She wore a thin denim jacket over a flannel shirt, jeans soaked through to the knees. No gloves, no proper winter gear. Her brown skin had taken on a grayish hue from the cold, and she was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. Wyatt didn't ask questions. Sarah would have had his hide if he'd left anyone out in this weather, especially a woman alone. He stepped aside. "Get in here before you freeze to death." Her name was Nora. She told him that much while wrapped in one of Sarah's old quilts, hands cupped around a mug of coffee so hot steam rose in spirals toward the ceiling. Wyatt had rebuilt the fire in the stone fireplace, and now orange light danced across the living room's worn furniture and faded photographs. "I was heading south," Nora said, her voice stronger now that warmth was returning to her body. "Truck died about 2 miles back. Saw your lights from the road." Wyatt nodded, not pressing for details she clearly wasn't ready to give. He'd lived long enough to know when someone was carrying weight they couldn't put down yet. "Storm's supposed to last through tomorrow night. You're welcome to stay until it clears." Something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe relief. "Just tonight," she repeated. But there was less conviction in it now. They sat in silence for a while, the fire crackling and wind battering the windows. Wyatt found himself studying her face when she wasn't looking. She was younger than him, early 40s maybe, with sharp cheekbones and eyes that seemed to see too much. There was a scar along her jawline, faint but visible in the firelight. Her hands, he noticed, were work-roughened, nails short and practical. "You Lakota?" he asked finally. She met his eyes directly. "Pine Ridge, born and raised. Long way from home. Don't have one anymore." The words came out flat, final. "That's why I'm heading south. Thought maybe Montana or Wyoming. Somewhere I can start over." Wyatt understood that impulse. After Sarah died, he'd considered selling everything and disappearing, but the ranch held too many memories, and he'd discovered that running from grief just meant carrying it to a new location. Eventually, you had to stop and face it. "Well," he said, standing and stretching his back until it cracked. "Guest rooms upstairs, second door on the left, bathrooms across the hall. I'll check on your truck in the morning, see if it's salvageable." Nora looked up at him, and for the first time, something softened in her expression. "Thank you, I mean it." "Don't mention it." Wyatt headed toward the stairs, then paused. "Fair warning, I'm up before dawn. Coffee'll be ready by 5. "I'll be gone before then," she said quietly, but they both knew she was lying. Wyatt woke at 4:47 a.m., same as every morning for the past 30 years. The storm had passed during the night, leaving behind 3 feet of fresh snow that glowed blue-white in the pre-dawn darkness. He dressed in the cold bedroom, flannel, thermal underwear, heavy work pants, and made his way downstairs, expecting to find the house empty. Instead, he found Nora in the kitchen, coffee already brewed, standing at the window and watching the sun begin its slow climb over the horizon. "Couldn't sleep," she said without turning around. "Hope you don't mind I started the coffee." Wyatt poured himself a cup, noting that she'd found the good beans Sarah used to buy from that place in Rapid City. "Storm's over. Roads'll be clear by noon if the county crews are on schedule." "Yeah." She turned to face him. In daylight he could see more clearly, the exhaustion etched into her features, the way she held herself like someone ready to bolt at any moment. "About my truck? Already called Henry down at the garage. He'll tow it in, take a look. Could be a few days before he knows what's wrong." Nora's jaw tightened. "I don't have money for a tow. Or repairs." "Didn't ask if you did." Wyatt moved to the stove and started pulling out eggs, bacon, bread. "You eat breakfast. I should go." "And walk where exactly? It's 12 degrees outside, and the nearest town is 40 miles. He cracked eggs into a pan with practiced efficiency. "Stay until your truck's fixed. You can help out around here if it makes you feel better about it. Lord knows I could use an extra pair of hands." He could feel her weighing it, pride warring with practicality. Finally she sighed. "A few days. That's all." But as they sat across from each other at the worn wooden table, eating eggs and bacon, while morning light flooded the kitchen, Wyatt felt something shift in the house's atmosphere. The silence that had pressed against him for 3 years felt less suffocating. The rooms seemed smaller, warmer. After breakfast, Nora insisted on washing dishes while Wyatt bundled up to check on the cattle. When he came back 2 hours later, frozen to the core, he found her in the living room with Sarah's old sewing kit, mending a tear in the couch's upholstery that he'd been meaning to fix for months. She looked up, caught his expression. "Hope that's okay. I noticed it yesterday." "It's fine," he managed. "It's good." That night, when Nora said she'd be gone in the morning, neither of them believed it. 3 days became a week became 2. Henry called about the truck. Engine was shot, needed parts that would take time to order. Nora took the news with a tight nod and went back to work, cleaning out the barn's storage room, organizing tools and equipment that Wyatt had let slide into chaos. They fell into a rhythm without discussing it. Wyatt handled the heavy ranch work, while Nora tackled everything he'd neglected: broken hinges, peeling paint, the garden plot that had gone to weeds after Sarah died. She cooked dinner most nights, simple but good food that reminded Wyatt what it felt like to look forward to meals again. They didn't talk much about their pasts. Wyatt learned that Nora had left Pine Ridge after her husband died in a construction accident, that she'd spent the last year drifting from job to job, never staying anywhere long enough to put down roots. She learned that Wyatt and Sarah never had children, that the ranch had been his whole life, that some mornings he still woke up reaching for someone who wasn't there. The turning point came on a Sunday afternoon, 3 weeks after Nora first knocked on his door. Wyatt was working on the fence line when he heard her scream. He ran toward the house, heart hammering, and found her in Sarah's old greenhouse, a structure he'd kept locked since his wife died. The door hung open, and inside, Nora stood among shattered clay pots and dead plants, face wet with tears. "I'm sorry," she gasped. I just wanted to see if anything could be saved. I didn't mean—" "It's okay." The words surprised him. He stepped carefully through the debris, glass crunching under his boots, and for the first time in 3 years, he really looked at what Sarah had built. Dead roses and withered herbs, potential buried under neglect and grief. "She gardened," Nora whispered. "It was her life." Wyatt picked up a clay marker, Sarah's handwriting still visible. Lavender, 2019. "I couldn't. After she passed, I just locked it up." Nora wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "My grandmother had a garden. On the reservation, she taught me everything, what grows in bad soil, how to coax life out of stubborn ground." She looked at him directly. "I could bring this back, if you wanted." Wyatt felt something crack open in his chest. Not breaking, but opening, like ice on a river in spring. "Yeah," he said roughly. "Yeah, I'd like that." That night, over dinner, Nora finally asked the question that had been hanging between them. "Why are you letting me stay?" Wyatt was quiet for a long moment, choosing his words carefully. "After Sarah died, this place felt like a tomb. I was just existing, going through motions." He met her eyes. "You being here, it's reminded me what it feels like to have a reason to get up in the morning, to have someone to talk to, even if we're not saying much." Nora's voice came out thick. "I don't deserve this. You don't know what I'm running from." "Don't care." The certainty in his voice surprised them both. "Whatever's behind you, that's your business. But if you want to stay, really stay, not just until the truck's fixed, you're welcome here. No strings, no expectations, just stay." The silence stretched between them, heavy with possibility. Finally, Nora nodded once, sharp and decisive. "Okay, I'll stay." Spring came slowly to the Black Hills, snow melting in fits and starts, revealing brown earth that gradually turned green. The greenhouse transformation became Nora's project, and Wyatt found himself drawn there in the evenings, watching her work with soil and seedlings, her hands sure and gentle. She'd stopped talking about leaving. Her truck sat behind the barn, cannibalized for parts, a rusted monument to a journey that had ended exactly where it was supposed to. Henry had stopped calling about repairs. One Saturday morning, Wyatt came downstairs to find Nora at the kitchen table, paperwork spread out in front of her. "Been thinking," she said without preamble. "If I'm staying, I should do it properly, pay rent, or work out some kind of arrangement. You work your ass off every day. That's arrangement enough." "Wyatt." She looked up at him, and he saw determination in her face. "I need this to be real. Not charity, not temporary. I need to know I'm building something here, not just hiding." He pulled out a chair and sat across from her. "What did you have in mind?" "Partnership. I take over the greenhouse, sell produce at the farmer's market in Rapid City. We split the profits. I also keep maintaining the property, and you teach me the ranch work. In exchange, I live here. We make decisions together about the place." Wyatt considered it. The ranch had been his and Sarah's dream, and the thought of sharing it with someone else should have felt wrong. But looking at Nora, at the hope and fear mixed in her expression, he realized that holding on to the past was just another way of dying. "Partners," he said, extending his hand. She took it, her grip firm and warm. "Partners." 6 months later, on a crisp October afternoon, Wyatt stood in the greenhouse and watched Nora explain composting techniques to a young couple from town. The space had been completely transformed, rows of healthy plants, the air rich with the smell of earth and growth. Through the glass, he could see the ranch house, smoke curling from the chimney. It looked like a home again. That evening, after the customers left, Nora found him fixing the gate to the north pasture. She leaned against the fence, quiet for a moment, just watching him work. "You know what's funny?" she said finally. I spent a year running, thinking I needed to find somewhere new to start over. Turns out I just needed to stop running. Wyatt drove the last nail home and straightened up, wiping sweat from his forehead despite the chill. I spent 3 years standing still, thinking that was the same as honoring Sarah's memory. Turns out I just needed to keep living. Nora smiled, a real smile, the kind he saw more and more often now. Think Sarah would have liked this? Us being partners? Yeah, Wyatt said, surprised to find he meant it completely. She would have loved you. Probably would have had you whipped into shape months ago. They walked back to the house together as the sun set behind the black hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Inside, dinner waited. Nora's venison stew, recipe from her grandmother. They'd eat together, talk about the day, make plans for tomorrow, just like family did. When Nora had knocked on his door that frozen night, asking for shelter until morning, neither of them could have imagined this. But sometimes the best families aren't born, they're chosen, built slowly, one shared meal and repaired fence and planted seed at a time. She never did leave, and neither of them ever wanted her to.